Hello, everyone, and welcome to our fourth and final Moody Talk on sadness. So, we've talked about quite a few things about sadness in particular. First week, we talked about, how we talk about sadness. What are the words that we use? How does our body feel when we're feeling sad? And what are our reactions, like our mind reactions, our body reactions to sadness? So we went through that. We also went through some coping skills on how to distract yourself. And we talked about wise mind, which is walking the center between reason mind and emotion mind. It's that middle path, and it's using mindfulness to get us into that mind, wise mind. And so we've talked about that as well. This week, we're talking about something that I think is a really difficult idea for people to wrap their head around, because it takes a lot to just let go and be with what you're feeling, right? And you don't want to feel sad, but they're really, for sadness, it's that kind of feeling that you don't have an alternative to, in the sense that sadness is when you've like lost someone or something that meant a lot to you. And so it may be a permanent situation, right? And we have to understand that. And that's why sadness is really hard to sit with, because we don't want to think there's nothing we can really do about it when it's such a final situation, right? So, what I'm going to talk about is radical acceptance. Okay. We're going to talk about what radical acceptance is, and we're also going to talk about what it is not, because I think this is where people don't want to really think about acceptance, especially radical acceptance. They think it's, you have to give in to certain things that you just really don't have to. It doesn't mean that you have to do something like forgiveness or anything like that. That's the part about radical acceptance I think people really want to run away from, is because they think there are these rules that really don't pertain to radical acceptance. Okay, so what is radical acceptance? Radical means all the way. So it doesn't mean just stopping and, just halfway through accepting it and then, not accepting. You're turning around and not accepting what may be something that's a permanent situation, right? And that's part of grief, right? We go through those stages of grief. So radical acceptance in those stages is going completely through those stages, okay? So radical means all the way, and accepting with all of yourself. Okay, that's giving in of mind, body, whatever parts of you. Some people believe this, that, letting go with your soul, whatever beliefs that you have, it's to let go all of it with all of yourself. Like you can't, say I'm no longer sad, but your body is still grieving, right? You're going to let that body grieve and not fight that grieving. Right? Stop fighting reality. So again, sadness is that emotion that sometimes you don't have an opposite of. People like to say happy to sad. Sadness is not that type of emotion. It's the type of emotion where you have to just get through it. You have to go through all the motions, sitting with the sadness, the grief, the kind of thing. So accepting limitations in past and present and future. Okay. So accepting that, you're not going to be able to do the same things that you were able to do before. Maybe you're grieving that you have an illness, and this illness is not going to allow you to do the things that you have done before, right? So, accepting your limitations of I can no longer, my body no longer allows me to go on the runs that I really love to do. I mean, maybe you're a runner and that's what you love to do. But now your body's limitation is no longer allowing you to do that thing that you enjoy doing. So accepting that we have those limitations. And sadness is a perfect example of that. Like I said, grieving that you can no longer go for runs, or you can no longer lift weights, or you can no longer drive a car, right? Maybe your eyesight is too bad at this point and you're not able to drive anymore. It's accepting that and accepting it for the right now and the future. Okay? Everything has a cause. Okay, so this one's hard to swallow, I think. I think this is really hard to swallow. Everything has a cause, sure. When we're talking about maybe relationships, when we're talking mainly about relationships, I would say. And there for body limitations, there can be. Maybe you're a runner and you can't run anymore because you've worn out joints that are no longer going to allow you to do the running, and you have to choose something else to do. That's a hard pill to swallow, especially if you're like not like I'd say a career runner, but a person that really enjoys every day or 3, 4 times a week going out on a nice run and getting all of that anxious energy maybe you have, and you can no longer do that. So you need to, find something else that's going to give you that, right? So everything has a cause for the most part, and it's something we just have to accept. If we were the cause of it, we have to accept that, right? If we're the cause and, we're no longer in communication with someone, we have to accept that, right? Life can be worth living even with painful events. And I think this is the major crux of it, right? Because a lot of people can get hopeless during sadness in a grieving process for a loved one, a relationship, a job, that kind of thing. There is a future that can be worth living, right? Nothing is ending because of this grief, this sadness that you're having because of the situation you're in. We can create new life that is rewarding after sadness and grief. Okay? So that is what radical acceptance is. Now we're going to talk about what radical acceptance isn't. So radical acceptance is not approval. So again, maybe you're in a relationship and there has been some betrayal. That does not mean that you approve of what happened. You can be sad about it and you can accept that that happened, and you can make your decisions the way you need to make them. Compassion. Radical acceptance is not compassion of the person that may have harmed you. Okay? The same as love. You do not have to love someone or something. Like maybe you lost your job, you have a new job. You don't have to love that job, I mean, like, you don't have to say, I'm no longer in that situation, so now I have to absolutely love what I'm in now. You don't have to do that. And the same with a person. You don't have to love that person after something has happened that you're grieving. Passivity, which means that you're just radical acceptance is just letting things happen. Just letting things happen around you that may be even more harmful to you. Okay? And it's not against change. Okay? So this one's a little interesting in the sense that radical acceptance is not against change. So it's not saying you have to stay in your sadness. It doesn't say that you have to stay in a situation that you don't want to be in. Let's say domestic violence. That's a pretty heavy one. But you don't have to radically accept that you don't have to leave them, or you don't want to leave them. You have the ability to choose that. You're not accepting that you're abused and just stay in the abuse. Okay? So I hope that this helps. Radical acceptance is something that's very hard to wrap your head around and to really want to do, honestly. We all want to kind of fight the feelings that we get when we're sad. We don't want to sit with those feelings and just have them go through our body. But as we talked about last week, that passes. An emotion passes. And though it's hard to sit with, it does actually pass. You don't sit in that emotion forever. Yes, it may come back, but you don't sit with it forever. It actually passes through our system. Okay? So I hope that this helped. I hope that this whole month, the Moody Talks on Sadness are helpful, especially around this time of year, which is the holidays. That's why I chose it. Uh, and I really hope that this can be a jumping point for you if you are grieving, that you have these, coping skills that you can use, and you have these ideas that can help you get through the process of grieving. Have a great rest of your week. Bye.